What's up, students? It's time for another primary source walkthrough. And this time, we have James Madison again. Oh, look, he's back. Guess who's back? Back again. Madison's back. Tell your friends. That's bad. I'm sorry. I'm not, but I'll say so. Anyway, we're back with James Madison. This time, he is not going to talk to us about religion. Instead, he is doing something very different. And what he is up to in this document, which is Federalist 51, James Madison is going to explain one of the benefits of the new Constitution that came out of the Constitutional Convention held in Philadelphia in 1787. Now, if you watched the introduction video for this week, you will already know my contextual kind of placing of this, and that is the Constitution was an incredibly controversial document when it was first put forward and attempted to be ratified. Remember, the country already had a constitution, that is the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation put most of the power into state governments, not into a big national federal government. But because of events like Shays' Rebellion and other such things, mostly Shays' Rebellion, the founding fathers, Madison among them, decided to meet in Philadelphia under the guise of amending the Articles of Confederation, and they wrote a brand new constitution, one that placed much more power in the hands of a national federal government and not so much the state, the states. And we'll see when we look at the inverse of Madison's argument, which is Patrick Henry's argument, that some people believed that this would really upset the balance of power in these new United States, that a national government would be a mistake. So, once the Constitution had been drafted in Philadelphia, and that was a contentious thing too. There was lots of debate, mostly between Madison, he's kind of important, and Alexander Hamilton, who you know because he has a musical on Disney Plus. If you haven't watched it, I mean it's fun. It's an interesting way of telling Hamilton's story. It gets a lot of things right, but it's a lot of other things wrong. It has a lot of blind spots, but Lord, the music's good. In any case, after that convention, the founding fathers agree that the Constitution needs to be ratified by the states, and this by no means is a sure bet. Especially in the southern states, like the Carolinas and Georgia, people aren't really excited about this thing. It seems to kind of go against the ethos of the revolution, and we'll see Patrick Henry make that argument too. So, in response to this, 3 of our founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, get together and they write 85 essays. Now, we know that Hamilton wrote the most essays, but I would say that Madison wrote the most important of them. The most important of them are number 10 and number 51. I chose 51 because I had a copy of it next to me, but we can 10 and be fine. If you really want to know what our founding fathers were thinking of the Constitution, you should read them all. I don't know that I ever will, but you should. I mean, I should too at some point. But 10 and 51 really get at the heart of things. So that's what this is. As such, we have to understand that what is going on here is, for lack of a better word, this is propaganda. This is pro-Constitution propaganda. We tend to think that propaganda is a bad thing, and the way we talk about propaganda is it has a very negative connotation, and there's a lot of propaganda that's really negative and destructive. But propaganda is really, at its core, just a political argument. Okay? It's trying to convince you that this particular political argument is a good one, which we, all engage in. And here, this is the representatives of the state, which gives it a bit more force. But they ran under a pen name. They named Publius or some Roman. These guys' obsession in Rome is toxic sometimes. That's a conversation for another day. Anyway, I've said that a lot in these videos lately. Alright, so let's get into what Madison has to say. And the text really starts over here on 123. And what's at issue here, what he's really going to be talking about, is the separation of powers. And why he thinks this separation of powers is so important. One of the things, he's saying is, here, the members of each department should be as little dependent as possible on those of the others for the emoluments, the powers, the benefits, as to their offices. Were the executive magistrate, the president, or the judges not independent of the legislature in this particular, their independence in every other would be merely nominal. Okay, so if we keep these branches of the government separate, then, like in actuality, then we're really not doing anything good. But because we have the very separate sections of power, that we've kept the magistrate, the president, the executive away from the legislative away from the judicial, and vice versa, even though they all work together, because we give them different powers, things are safer that way. Like he says, ambition must be made to counteract ambition. If the court gets too ambitious, that's where the legislature comes in. If the legislature becomes too ambitious, well, the courts can do something about it. If the executive gets too ambitious, then the legislature or the courts can do something about it. Each has a check on each other. This is, you've heard the phrase over and over again in your lives, checks and balances. That's what he's doing for here. Now, he says, in an ideal world, with ideal men, we wouldn't even need this. We wouldn't need a government at all. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. Conversely, he says, if angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. So if men were perfect, government wouldn't need to be necessary. Or if government was ruled by perfection itself, angels, then we wouldn't have to worry about controls on government, because they would be fully rational, fully independent, not in need of the checking of ambition. Remember, the good angels are ones who are not ambitious. It's that other one who owns a nightclub in LA, according to Netflix, who was a bit too ambitious. And that got him in trouble. I think you know what I'm talking about. This is an interesting thing to say about human nature. Again, Madison's a very philosophical dude here. He's saying men are imperfect. They're incapable of self-rule. There has to be a check on others. Which, kind of the ethos of the revolution, and Henry's going to say this, is that men are perfectly capable of governing themselves. But Madison's saying, No, if man is to his own devices, we're in a whole bunch of trouble. Because ambition, as he's kind of pointing out here, is going to make it so that, some men are going to come to dominate the others. So we have to have some check and balances here. I don't think Patrick Henry believes this at all. This seems very Lockean to me. There's a philosopher, a British philosopher, his name is John Locke. Not to be... You guys don't even know what the show Lost is anymore. I don't know if I can even make that reference. Anyway, Locke, his second treatise on government is incredibly influential on the American founding fathers. For example, Locke believed that men were granted 3 rights: life, liberty, and property. Jefferson obviously has influenced this, but changes property to pursuit of happiness, which is a kind of a monumental change. But Locke is essentially kind of arguing the same thing, that men enter into a government, or they form a government to protect against their own nature. That if men did not come together and form the social contract, that this would descend into the state of nature, which is not pretty. And this also, if you've read Thomas Hobbes, Hobbes would say the same thing. Hobbes was much less optimistic than Locke was, and said that the life of man is nasty, brutish, and short in the state of nature, and we come together and form a society to escape that fate. Locke's a little softer on that. Anyway, so we have to have this government, and we have to have ambition counteract ambition, and here he's talking again about this separation of powers, and he says that yes, we have this big, powerful national government, but we also have the state governments, which can do their thing, and they answer to each other, they keep everybody in check, and then we have this huge, giant society anyway, that there will never be a majority large enough to completely be able to dismiss the wants of others. That these interests that arise, whether they're religious interests, economic interests, they work to counteract each other so that no one can ever be truly ascendant. I think you'd look at 2020 and wonder what the hell happened, but that is a different story. And he says, look, if we have this big space, and we have all of these different independent parts, it's never going to work. It's going to become corrupted. So, whilst all authority in it will be derived from and independent on the society, the society itself will be broken in so many parts, interests, and classes of citizens that the rights of individual or of the minority be in little danger from interested combinations of the majority. In a free government, the security for civil rights must be the same as that of religious rights. It consists, in the one case, in the multiplicity of interests, and in the other, in the multiplicity of sects. S-E-C-T-S, not S-E-X-T-S. This has nothing to do with texting racy things. That's a bad joke. Anyway, so the degree of security in both cases will depend on the number of interests and sects, and this may be presumed to depend on the extent of country and number of people comprehended under the same government. He says, look, we've got to make sure that if we have all of these different interests, these different kind of focuses, whatever, we need a place to bring it all together so we can work it out. Because if we let everything be too independent, then nothing is ever going to get done. And he says, look, this is the purpose of the government anyway. So he says the word end. Where is it? My notes are failing me right now. This is why you should annotate more. This is a really good example. Okay. Justice is the end of government. So what he's saying is not, if we do justice, we end government. What he's saying, justice is the purpose of government. Justice is the end of civil society. Again, it's the purpose of civil society. Not, sorry, my camera's not going far enough. Too many things on my desk. So, he says it down here at the end. Justice is the end of government. It is the end of civil society. Not, it's bringing it to a close, but end here means purpose. So like the phrase, the ends justify the means, the methods, or sorry, the end result justifies the way you got there. So this is the purpose. This is what it exists for. Justice is the purpose of government. Justice is the purpose of civil society. It ever has been and ever will be pursued until obtained or until liberty be lost in the pursuit. That's what he's working towards. So this is a pretty powerful letter, I think. He's really kind of driving home the fact that in a situation like the United States, which quite honestly is a bit of a unique situation, Madison is saying we have to have some kind of control. We've seen it demonstrated through Shays' Rebellion, etc., even though he doesn't mention it here, that if we have these too many independent parts, things aren't going to work out for us. We have to depend on each other. We have to be united. We have to have something overseeing all of us. So, he's saying that this national government is representative of everybody, but it is broken up into parts, just like the state's broken up into parts, just like the people are broken up into parts. And all of this is worked together to bring this new government with oversight together and not allow it to take over and dominate your life. That's what he says. Not everybody believes him. And we are going to see the counter-argument to Madison in the next video. So, I am going to leave it there. I think these questions for discussion are pretty interesting. Something for you to chew on. I think that we've addressed these questions to some extent in the video, which is already over 18 minutes, so I need to wrap it the F up. So, we'll be back for Patrick Henry shortly, and until then, ladies and gentlemen, be good to yourselves, and I'll see you on the next one.